No, you should do what is best for you and your family, and this just so happens to be what's best for us. So I always say, you don't owe anybody an explanation for doing what's best for your family.
Welcome to another episode of the RV Voice. I am talking to some more full-timers today. They've been at it for 3.5 years. They're running around in a 2022 Grand Design Solitude 3950 BHR. And I just found out what that is. It's not rear, it's residential because of the residential fridge. But anyway, we'll hop back to that. They're running around with kiddos as well. 2 of them, 9.5 and 4.5. But anyway, guys, if you haven't heard about RVFix, I've been talking about it, and I tell you about it every single time. Why? Because it is absolutely incredible. Let me pull up the discount code. If you use promo code RVVoice, you get RVFix at $199 a year. That's less than $17 a month. And why is this a big deal? One, because this locks in your price for years to come. This will not be $200-ish a year. It'll probably be more around $500 plus. But what's really cool about RVFix is you can talk to master RV technicians over a video call. They can walk you through about 40% of your problems right off the bat. So 40% of the calls that come through are getting fixed right then and there versus you having taken your RV, letting it sit on the lot for 90 plus days and not having your RV, and you're still paying for it. So if you're interested in that, use promo code RVVoice at checkout to get that price. That being said, we're going to welcome our guest today. It is Chris and Amanda with Type 1 Detour. Thank you guys so much for being here. Absolutely. I am excited to hear about your story.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting one.
It's an interesting one. Yeah. I mean, we have a what almost was a D1 quarterback. I apologize for the knee thing. It sucks, but I've been there too. So, and Amanda, you guys have been at this for 3.5 years now, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of hop into your personal journey into the RV life.
Okay, I am Amanda. I am born and raised in South Florida. Went to school there, all the way to high school, college there, and then that's where we met. Fresh out of college.
Yeah. So my name is Chris. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, and I had started to go to college in Pennsylvania, got diagnosed with diabetes, moved to Florida, went to Florida Atlantic University where I met Amanda, spent about 15 years in Florida with her down there, used my sales skills to sell her to move to the state of Pennsylvania somehow. And then a few years later, sold her on this idea here of full-time travel. So that's our kind of quick backgrounds, but we're excited to get into this.
Oh my gosh! So you had to sell your way into making. Well, you sold her on Pennsylvania, and then you sold her on the idea of RVing. Usually, this is interesting because usually it's the wife's part that wants to do the RVing. So the fact that it's the husband's part, I'm really interested in what you guys have to say. So let's just hop into that. The personal journey into the RV life. What inspired you to transition into it? This Chris was the instigator of this all. And then can you share your story of how you first got started with it all?
Yeah. It was 2020 that happened, and we were at home a lot more and a lot of more downtime. And he came up with this, he approached me one day with this crazy idea and was like, how about we get an RV and travel? And I'm like, I don't think people live in an RV. I've never heard of that. Like, I was like, yeah, just totally shocked. But at that time he was working remote. My older daughter was starting kindergarten remote. So it was like, all right, well, I mean, I guess we could do this. And it took a lot more convincing than just that. But there were a lot of moving parts to figure out, but then
I mean, it was kind of an initial yes almost immediately, but it was like a yes, but how are we going to do it? Right. But it kind of all started, like she said, with everything that was going on in 2020. We were living in Pennsylvania at the time. Her family was in South Florida still, and I was like, we can rent an RV, for a couple weeks or something. I started looking into that. I realized at that time it was probably cheaper to buy an RV than it was to rent one to drive from Pennsylvania to Florida for like a month. And then that was it. I couldn't sleep that night, was on the internet, went down the rabbit hole of the internet and YouTube. And at like 3 a.m, I was like, there's people that are crazy enough to live and travel in an RV with kids. Like, that's crazy, but that's awesome. And then I told her that very next morning, and yeah, I mean, she was kind of on board, but was like very hesitant about it. Like, how are we going to do this? So
make
it's kind of where it all started.
Right. In the back of my mind, mom brain, I'm thinking like, okay, how are we going to make this work with doctor appointments, all of their diabetes supplies, like medical emergencies, like how are we going to do this when you're just like living on the road, in a way.
In the middle of nowhere.
Right, in the middle of nowhere. You don't know the areas that you're visiting. So that was a lot of that took a lot of time to research and figure out and be okay with it. Like it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It'll all work out. So yeah, it took us from when he came up with the crazy idea to when we actually launched was
almost a year.
At least a year. Yeah.
Okay. So like the normality of it, that's like the people, yes, that's the biggest worry for people, right? There's the normality of life, right? The life is like sticks and bricks. You have a house, you have everything, you go into school, you have your job, your 9 to 5, whatever it may be. So like you're flipping that on edge or flipping that over completely and like, all right, well, it's basically a blank slate and restart, right? Like, what are we going to do and how are we going to make this work? And kudos to you guys because you are making it work. So good for you. But I have a real quick funny story about diabetes I want to tell you guys about. So I was actually elk hunting up in Montana with my buddy who has diabetes. I don't know what type, but I got pulled over. We were on our way back to Nebraska. I got pulled over just inside of Wyoming somewhere. And the cop walks up and I was like, trying to make a joke. I'm like, you got me. He's a sneaky fella. He was like in a really bad spot in town. Anyway, he rolls up and he starts laughing. Then he looks at the dash and my buddy's needle and like insulin bottle are sitting right there. He's like, what's that? I'm like, oh, that probably does look bad. I was like, it's my buddy's diabetes stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we're not those people, I swear.
Oh, yeah, and he sometimes his needles around, and I'm like, you can't that looks bad, like right. You can't just come on, don't leave it in the truck, just sitting right out there in the cup holder. But yeah,
been there.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, I just felt like I had to share that story. I haven't thought about that in a long time, but anyway, so preparation and planning, it was a different step for you guys. You weren't exactly comfortable with it. You're a dreamer, Chris, I commend you for that because, so same am I. I've had a million nights like that, more than I can share, more than I can say. It's just like, I'm dreaming about this, XYZ, a Jeep, a motorcycle, whatever it may be, swimming in Florida or swimming in, whatever. But preparation planning, what steps did you take to prepare to go full-time RV? Because you have your kiddos too. And they were, one of them was just a babe at the time, right?
Right.
And then how did you choose your first RV? And what would you say to someone trying to select their first RV to go full time?
Yeah. So I think the initial kind of transition in planning. So at the time of coming up with this idea, I was a realtor, and anything about real estate, it's kind of difficult to sell real estate in an area if you're traveling the country. So that was step number one. Was yes, I was working remote, but how could I transition from being a realtor to doing something similar? So the very first thing I did was I went and got my mortgage license, and I just kind of stayed in the industry, but just switched, to the other side of the transaction. Now, I did that for the first year of us being on the road. And I started to think about I have a tough time, giving mortgages to people when my kind of whole philosophy on the owning the home thing was slowly starting to change. So I was having a lot of conflict of okay, I'm approving these people to buy a home for 30 years that on paper they can afford it. but I know if 1 month, their electric bill is a little bit too high, I'm the reason why I may have put them in a bad position and whatnot. So I started to have a lot of like internal conflict on that. And, I ended up leaving that job and falling back on my decade or so of owning a marketing business and being able to just work remote again, being, in the marketing space. That was kind of transition number one, what was figuring out the income. So I had a plan, and then that kind of transitioned into something else along the way. The other thing was, like Amanda had mentioned, like schooling. Our youngest had started kindergarten and did a year of remote school anyway. So our children are not homeschooled necessarily, like the traditional homeschool way. They do school at home, but they are through a state provided funded program where they have live Zoom classes and teachers and schoolmates and stuff like that. So they do school at home, but they're not necessarily homeschooled. We put that in place, and that was not something that was a big kind of change for us, because we were already doing it.
And,
so we were
and I was I was a stay-at-home mom anyway, so I was at home all the time anyway, and so it wasn't that, in that aspect, it wasn't that much to like plan and change. And then once we started looking at different RVs, we were kind of all over the place. Like at first we were like, oh, we can just squeeze into a little Class C or something. And then I was like, yeah, maybe not, maybe Class A. And then I was like,
we had a deposit. We had a deposit on a Class A. So we had a deposit on one. We were ready to go with a Class A. It was a bunkhouse Class A. And then we kind of, our mindset started to change a little bit more about what we really wanted. Because I was like,
if we're going to be living, in this, going from a house to this small space, like I at least want the kids to have a designated space, like their own space, kind of like a room, like where they had, back in the house with their toys. I didn't want to get rid of all of their stuff. So I was like, yeah, let's start looking at fifth wheels, because that's kind of like, it seemed more homey to us. Some had islands. It's like an island in an RV. Okay, that's cool.
Fancy.
Our biggest, really. So our biggest was definitely having a separate space for the kids, their own bedroom, with enough space to have majority of their toys, obviously their own sleeping space too. And we also wanted a residential fridge to keep their supplies and their insulin cold and not have that change temperatures while we're traveling and stuff like that. And then also a washer and dryer. That was kind of one big thing that I was kind of like a stickler about. I'm going to be living in here doing multiple loads a day. Like, we need our own.
And this is, before this, we had never stepped foot in an RV. I went on a bachelor party weekend one time. We went to a Penn State football game, and 10 of us guys rented an RV, and we slept in one. And that was my experience kind of being in an RV. So I was like, I don't know how we're going to do this. The biggest vehicle I had ever driven was our Jeep Compass at the time. So I never drove a truck. I never towed anything, never did anything remote. Like I'm a computer guy. We went tent camping like twice. Like I don't do things with my hands. It's that's not me. So going from like, okay, I can drive a Class C. It's like, it's like driving a U-Haul, So then it went to the Class A. I was like, all right, I can do this. Then when she was like a fifth wheel, I'm like, okay, well now I need like a dually. I need a truck. I need to learn how to tow. And like, it was, a very high anxiety time of like learning all this stuff. Like I have to do all these things. But like she said, once she kind of had me start looking into fifth wheels and stuff, I was like, all right, I think this is the better option. And, maybe a piece of advice, we had heard some advice of like, just get out with and start with what you can get. For us, I'm glad we didn't do that. I had heard one time online too, was buy your second RV first. And I took that to heart, where Because if we would have started in something that was too small or didn't work for us, we may have quit and we may have never even continued on because we would have thought maybe like this just isn't for us.
Right.
So we made sure we went big. We
alter your experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got what we wanted. And like I said, she had some must-haves. I had a couple must-haves, and this model fit all of those. And I think that's part of our kind of the success of this story too, is that we had the right RV to start with, to where it wasn't something that kind of discouraged us and made us want to stop. Like, we had everything that we needed in this RV, and it made the experience even better. So I think my piece of advice would be to don't just go get the first thing you can get and get out. Like, take your time, really make a list of what your priorities are. Like for us, I thought I needed like a 36-foot RV in order to fit in every state and national park. Listen, we've stayed in 2 national parks, and I'll make the 25-minute drive, 30-minute drive into the park and stay at an RV resort outside of it. It's not that big of a deal for us, but I thought like, oh, I need to have something that'll fit in every single state park, every single national park. And I really didn't need that.
Those extra 4 or 5 feet on a day-to-day basis was more important than staying in a national park for a few days at a time. But yeah, it just comes down to, everybody's preference and what they can tolerate. And and it just works for us.
Yeah. So you guys really went through a, pros and cons, right, of each, right? So you did Josh, the RV nerd, has the buy the second RV the first time. He has a video on that. If you're listening, go check it out. If you're trying to get an RV. But that's a lot, I need this. There's like the must-haves, because the RVs, every single one of them, especially when you get into it, when you first got into it, you were trying to get a Class A, right? And then you start like diving deeper into it. I've been in the RV world now for 3 years. And when I first got there, I had no idea that these things were even sold at dealerships, right? It was just over my head. Like, didn't even consider it. I lived right by an RV dealership, crossed by it all the time, but it never really clicked that this was a massive industry, Yeah. And then you get into it, and then you see all these, model numbers, and then you model letters, and then you start seeing the fifth wheels and travel trailers, pop-ups, truck campers, Class C's, Class C plus, Class B plus, Class Super C's, Class. I mean, there's so much. I mean, it's an abnormal amount of information. It's like drinking from a fire hose, right? It doesn't work. It's hard to get, like, I guess, well-versed in the RV community or the RV world in general. But you said something like, you buy that second RV the first time. But I talked to a Little Wild, a Lot Free recently, Naomi and Barry, if you ever met them or heard of them. And they started with a family of 5 and a dog, a big dog too, it's like 100 pounds, in a 17-foot bunkhouse that was 7 foot wide. It was a mini Winnie, and they were pulling with a Ford Flex, and they went on a road trip for a year, and now they're in a Class A, but they did that for almost a year. Like, right. Yeah.
But
we know people, we have friends that are in smaller things and it works for them. So that's why I was saying, kind of like, figure out what your priorities are, because if it works for you, go start with what you have. Don't wait around. For us, we didn't have anything. So we were coming from a position where we don't have anything anyway. So we just we can wait until we can figure out exactly what we want. Now, if we already had an RV at that time, we probably would have just gotten started with what we had. But the fact that we had no truck, we had nothing. I had a Jeep Compass at the time. We were sharing a vehicle, and that was it. So for us, it was, unless we wanted a teardrop, trailer, we had to upgrade everything anyway. So for us, every situation is different, every circumstance is different, and that's what worked for us. And
we would just say, just don't. Obviously plan, get all your, ducks in a row and everything, plan it out, but don't wait. Like, don't say now's not the right time, because it's never going to be the right time. No. It was not the perfect time for us. Like, just like when you have a kid, like you know, people always say, oh, well, it's not the right time. It's not that it's never going to be the right time to make such a drastic change in your life, to go from the 9 to 5 living in a house to working remote and traveling around the country. So, but you got to just do it. You got to just get, when you feel like you could be ready or you're almost there, just take the leap and do it. Because
if it fails, you can just go back to what you used to do. And, you know, if it doesn't work for you, you go back to how you used to live your life, but at least you tried, and you don't live the rest of your life with that regret of, man, what if I would have did this? What if I would have did that? And, you know, at least you tried. And yeah, I mean, I think just the best part is get started as fast as you can, but also at the same time, make sure you're prepared. Don't go into it, you know, unprepared.
Don't rush it, but don't not rush it.
Exactly.
I love that. But along with this, guys, I mean, it brings a lot of different challenges, right? I mean, it's not something easy to just transition into, right? So let's kind of talk about your daily life routine, challenges, and solutions, right? So what does a typical day look like for you guys while RVing? Because it's different now than it was, right? It's not the same 9 to 5. It's not the same, you know, stay at home and do the things there, because it's mobile, right? It's moving around every I'm guessing 2 to 3 weeks to a month. You guys move around. It's a different place. I mean, everything changes. How do you manage everyday tasks, cooking, cleaning, whatever it may be? Laundry sounds like you got your own, because that was a must-have for you. So what are some biggest challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them? How do you handle maintenance, shipping, packages, mail? What does that all look like?
Honestly, like, it's going from a house, it's almost the same. You can make it the same routine as if you were living in a house, stationary. Like, you're doing the same morning routine, the breakfast and the school and work and things like that. Some things will be different. Like, when you get off of work or are done with school, you can just head over to the playground nearby, or you can take a drive to the state park that's around. So it's not really much different. And that was one of the things that I was afraid of before even starting this. Like, what is my day-to-day going to look like? It's going to be so different because I was so routine and structured. And then when I got out there, it was like, oh, it's not so bad. Like, you're doing your day-to-day life, just not in a house. You're in an RV.
So, and we had, I mean, I don't know if the word is the right word here would be like seasons, but we have kind of different types of travel that we have depending on the type of the year, the time of the year and stuff. So in the winter, we typically slow down because we go, you know, so hard the rest of the year. So what's flexible about our kids' school is that they are able to attend live classes if they want, but they can just do them on their own if they want. So we are, you know, we're out west and we're hopping around, you know, Utah through the Big Five and everything. Like, we can just go and do those things. So we might not have a regular day of school for 2 weeks. They're still getting their things done and not falling behind. And I might be working from, you know, 8 p.m. to 2 in the morning, you know, from that week, you know, catching up on things. And we can be out doing everything we need to be doing, going to all the national parks. And then we have, you know, like for the next several months, we'll be bouncing around in Florida for the winter, where things are slow. It's like, we're not doing the fun, super exciting things where it's like every day is a new state park, national park. We're boondocking everywhere. No, we're going to be in an RV park and a few of the same ones bouncing around. We'll be working during the day. We'll be doing school. We'll, you know, hang out with friends afterwards. Maybe we'll take a day trip to, you know, an area in Florida we haven't explored yet. So when we do slow down, we try to keep things just as normal as possible, and also try to explore locally of places that, you know, we stay in the kind of the Orlando area, Central Florida area. There's a ton there that we still haven't done and still haven't seen and stuff like that. So we try to keep it as kind of normal as possible. But yeah, I mean, dinner is cooked the same way it's cooked in sticks and bricks. Laundry, I mean, I don't do the laundry. I think the laundry is a little easier now because it's all in one. All you have to do is put it in. It washes and dries it for you. Socks don't get lost in the dryer as much apparently
it's just
here.
a bit
So
smaller. So I'm constantly doing the laundry. Laundry hasn't moved out from a house to an RV.
Every day is laundry day.
The space, yeah. So but other than that, we cook the same. We got the gas range. We have a Ninja foodie thing that does everything: air fries, bakes, slow cooks, everything.
The one thing I did want to touch on, because you had brought up, is kind of getting the mail and our supplies and packages and stuff. So that was obviously one of our big things before we had launched was, without insulin, I can't live. Our oldest daughter can't live. I mean, we must have our insulin, and we must have the supplies that deliver us that insulin. So that was worry number one. I would say we worried a ton about that, and it's been the least stressful part of this entire process because it has been so easy, so simple, knock on wood here. But there are, there's mail order pharmacies. We use national, apparently we use CVS, and I don't think it has anything to do with CVS other than the fact that they're inside Targets, and somebody likes to pick up the the prescriptions inside the Target.
Oh no!
So that's one thing, but we've been able to kind of figure out a process that works for us of having our supplies shipped to whatever campground we're going to be at, have it delivered to a post office that does kind of general delivery, pick up prescriptions, like I said, transfer it to a CVS around the entire country, depending on where we're at. Sometimes if things need to be picked up in the state of Pennsylvania, which is our home state, sometimes my parents may just pick it up and kind of hold on to things for us until we kind of come back there for doctor's appointments and stuff like that. So we've been able to kind of figure that out. It's been pretty easy. And the same goes with my Amazon like address thing. Like, you're just scrolling. I mean, I've seen different Amazon lockers and addresses and in there. Yeah. And sometimes that can get a little confusing, but it's been pretty simple and pretty easy for us to get our packages. And mail, honestly, I always say now that if you're getting something in the mail, it's not good. You probably don't want it anyway, in some type of physical mail. So most of our stuff comes, digitally anyway. So a lot of that paper mail, it goes, to an address in Pennsylvania we still have a residency at, and it just kind of, I don't know, throw it away for the most part type of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, was something that we were worried and concerned about, and it ended up being completely fine.
Yeah. And I've heard people do almost like pre-ship. Like, I'm going there. Like you said, I'm going that way. Or like, I have a friend there. Like, hey, you mind if we stop by the house for a day or something like that? And, then you get to see friends as you're going. I've talked to several people that said that. I was always worried about that. I mean, it is a natural worry, right? Because like, there's certain things you can't really pick up at the store, but Amazon's got it, Yep. And that sounds like they said like 90, I've heard like 90% of people, or at least campgrounds, will let you ship to. But sometimes there's a fee involved, which is kind of, to me, sounds odd. But but whatever. Yeah, but it is a worry. What about maintenance and repairs? How do you guys handle all that?
We don't handle them as much as they probably should be handled, or as much as somebody would like them to be handled. But I was always if something broke, call my dad type of guy. He could fix it. So like I said, if you had something wrong with your computer, I'm your guy. You have something wrong that requires a hammer or a screwdriver, I'm probably not your guy. But
you have learned a lot.
Luckily, I have
on the road.
I have like a
out of necessity
master's university. So I want to thank all the YouTubers out there that make these incredible videos of how to fix things and how to do maintenance, because I mean, I watched a ton of them. I still do. So if something goes wrong, I have a couple, friends that we've met on the road that I call them immediately, like, hey, this happened. and, what do I do? How do I, is this something that I should be fit, 6 months, every 12 months, whatever. But I've been able to kind of learn how to do things, and the simple thing. I'm still not allowed to hang a picture or anything like that, because my artistic style is I like things to be a little crooked. It's not laziness. It's just that's my artistic style. It's how I like things to be.
Just a wee mess.
She does.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. That's how I see it. It's hanging. That's all that matters. To be straight, it's hanging. She's more of a, if we got to put something up, she's measuring the wall, finding the midpoint, subtracting this, finding the square root of that. And I'm like, look, right where you're standing right now looks pretty darn good to me. And if you like it, stand at a different angle and you'll see it from a different perspective then, so that's kind of, where we are. But yeah, I mean, maintenance has been, it's something that I was, again, concerned about and worried about, because I didn't know how to do things.
But it's similar to a house.
Right.
A house, you have, maintenance, your air conditioner goes out, the gutters or the plumbing, it's similar. So we were surprised to learn that. Yeah, it's like you have almost the same responsibilities in a house as you do in an RV. It's just a little different, but
when we kind of first started, I think it was within our first year or so, we had something happen, and I learned the hard way with a pretty large hourly rate for about a 30-second job. And I had something wrong. My jacks wouldn't come up, and I had no clue what to do. I couldn't find like a YouTube video about it. We were supposed to be checking out at the time, so I called, the campground office and said, "Hey, I can't get my jacks up. I can't leave." And they said, "Well, we have somebody like literally in the parking lot right now ready to check into your site. So there's, we have a mobile RV tech or something. He'll come." And it cost me a lot of money to find out. All I had to do was just, take a screwdriver or a wrench or something and manually do something. It was about 3 years ago when that happened. And, you kind of learn the hard way in those situations that, there's options and there's ways to figure out how to do things, and a hard lesson to learn. But that's what it's all about. You're learning lessons, you're learning how to do things. Once I learn how to do something once, I kind of can figure it out from there. But I definitely need that help that first time of, like, if you don't know what you're looking for, you can't try to fix it or work on it if you don't even know you're supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, when it's hard to. I grew up on a farm in the middle of Nebraska, so like I had to figure stuff out, and we can jerry rig basically anything, right? I knew how to do that stuff. I can fix quite a bit. My problem is not always knowing what's actually wrong. I have the same idea. Like my dad's an aero mechanic by trade and also a pilot, but also a farmer. So he grew up doing all these things, and he's a mechanic. I mean, he can figure things out. I'm probably a better residential construction guy, framer, but much better on that side of things. But same thing, he just knows how to do those things, but it's hard to understand like what's actually wrong, but if you had somebody call, so you said YouTube University, we have something like that. RVFix we talked about before, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. You can call a master RV tech and he can walk you through that issue. A lot cheaper than having a mobile tech come out, because their rate, starts right when they leave, and it gets pretty expensive quite quickly.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I completely understand that. But maintenance, especially if you're a computer guy, and like you gotta learn things by necessity now, and you just pick things up as you go. And I'm sure you have a toolkit of some sort now, but you learn that as you go. And kudos to you guys for not getting this, I guess, discouraged, with the whole idea of having an RV, because things will break. Absolutely will break. It's going down the road, hurricane force speeds, mini earthquakes the whole time.
And it's not it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and just having the mindset of knowing that ahead of time, that like, hey, something's probably going to happen, but
That was like a mindset shift, because in a house, or, you know, when you're buying a house, you expect it to be perfect. Like, you know, somebody's building it. It has to be tip top shape, perfect. Mm-hmm. And then you get an RV and you're like, well, we just took it down the road for an hour. Why is the breaking? It's like, that's just part of it. It's a moving house. It's going down. It's like an earthquake going down the highway. Every time you drive it, things are going to break, and that's just how it is. And you just have to roll with it. Another way of just, you got to learn to be flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, you guys brought up homeschooling, and I really want to hit on that. That's something I started to bring up a lot with these conversations, because I'm sure you've seen it on the social platforms of people kind of ragging on homeschoolers or RV homeschoolers, right? Which I don't think is correct. I'm more of the firm believer of this is going to be highly beneficial for a lot of these children. Why? Because they're getting exposed and seeing a lot more across the U.S. than a kid sitting in the classroom with one window in it. Personally. So let's kind of dive into that. Like, how do you handle homeschooling? You said your structure is a little different, but they still keep up with everything. But do you catch some hate for that? Do you feel like kids are thriving from your educational standpoint? And then, you know, these kids are a little younger yet, but what about sports? Like, do you see them, or do you like kind of let them take those avenues or whatever they're dreaming about that they want to try? Do you let them do those things?
Yeah. So their schooling is cyber. And so, like we were saying earlier, they have teachers, they have classmates, they have live sessions, but it's also flexible where they can choose to do the lesson on their own time. So we really like that, because it kind of is like a hybrid between homeschooling. They're at home with us, and we can kind of make our own schedule that works for us on the road. But also they're getting like that structure and also the academics that would come with a brick and mortar school. I used to teach before I had kids, and I can't do it. Like it's just a hard separation between mom and teacher. And so I love this, that they have that kind of adult to, you know, that's teaching them. That's not just mom, you know, I want to play. And it's like, well, no, we're doing our ABCs right now. I'm not mom, I'm the teacher. So this is a good balance. And then when they're not doing the live classes with the teacher, then I'm sitting with them and we're working on things together. And then they also are learning out in their environment, wherever we are at, which is really cool to see the past 3.5 years, because they learn about it in school and, you know, the textbooks or whatever they're reading. And then we're actually going to see it like in person. Our oldest daughter, for example, a few years ago in social studies learned about Mount Rushmore. And she's always said, I want to see the mountains with the, you know, the people's faces on them. Well, last year we actually went there, and her face just like said it all. Like, and she remembered, I remember in first grade, we learned about Mount Rushmore, and now I'm here. I can't believe it. This is unbelievable. So that was like a really cool moment. And
it really helps them understand things in more of a depth too, and not just, you know, when you read something in a book, half the time you don't remember it, or you're not really focusing on it or paying attention to it. And, you know, for us, we love this structure that, like, our oldest is in 4th grade now, and she's had some of the same classmates since kindergarten. So they see each other on Zoom. Kind of when class is over, the teachers will keep the Zoom rooms open, and they can just hang out and talk. And like, she's made friends, and they play Minecraft together now, and they do things. And when we go back to Pennsylvania, they'll do meetups and stuff. And you know, because everybody lives in the state of Pennsylvania that does this, because it's through a charter state cyber charter school through the state of Pennsylvania. So they're getting that kind of socialization. Right. They have the classmates. There's the structure. But like Amanda said, we also have that flexibility of, hey, we're going to Zion this week. We're not doing live classes. We're out at a national park. We're learning about the local culture, the local history. But then when we come home, you know, we're going to do a lesson or two, and we're going to do our math and our English and whatever. And, you know, it's a great mix between the two. And it doesn't put so much pressure on Amanda to have to like worry about coming up with a curriculum and doing the teaching and everything. And, you know, for us, this balance just works better for us, as opposed to, you know, your traditional kind of homeschooling of parents taking it on and road schooling type of stuff where, excuse me, like I said, it just, for us, this combination has just been perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, sorry, again, to your point, I feel like these kids are going to be more well-rounded, more cultured. They're going to, you know, RV parks. They're meeting people from California. When you guys are from Pennsylvania, you're meeting people from up in Washington or even the Midwest. You know, you're meeting people from all over. I feel like these kids are going to come out ahead of where, like, you know, private school, public schooling kids would be. Yeah. Do you feel that same way? Like how?
Yeah, they have really come out of their shell. Like it's almost, they have to. I mean, they were already pretty outgoing and sociable anyway, but this also, you know, kind of forces them in a way to make friends with other kids. They make friends at the playground, they make friends with the neighbors, and not just the same group as, you know, if you were in a neighborhood, in a house, you have the same group of friends that you kind of click with and stuff like that. This has allowed them to make friends with kids from all different walks of life and cultures and different parts of the country. And they're just, you know, walking to the playground blindly, and they kind of just have to make friends. And so that's been really cool to see them. And they stay in touch through usually Facebook Messenger Kids. There's an app that's kind of like Facebook. It's basically run under Facebook, and it's a messaging system for kids. So that's how our girls have stayed in touch with other families that we've met. And it's kind of cool because they share the same experience, the RV experience. So when they're talking to each other, it's kind of, oh, where are you? Oh, I see you're up in your bunk. Oh, what state are you in now? And so that's been really cool to see. And
and like I said, they'll play like Minecraft together and stuff, but staying in touch where they share that common bond, which they probably don't even realize that they're sharing that common bond of, like, you know, we're the non-normal people, and I don't even like using that phrase, but like we're the kind of not the norm in society where they're, you know, they don't do the normal things that the normal families do. And, you know, so they bond together. They understand this lifestyle. Like our youngest, she was what, 2.5 when we started two. So like to her, she doesn't know that people live in houses. Like she just, you know, like people, it's weird that, you know, grandma and grandpa live in a house like that's, you know, so it's like, that's just what she kind of knows. But like literally just yesterday, they went to the playground and there was like 6 or 7 other kids there. And it's like, they just made friends, you know, instantly. And I know, like when I was 9-10 years old, if I went to the playground, like if I didn't know those kids, I had like such like anxiety because I was like, oh, I'm not going to fit in with their group. They already know each other. They're not going to want to talk to me. And, you know, looking back, I probably did the same thing where I was like, well, I'm here with my, you know, group of 5 friends. You're an outsider. I don't want to like, I have no will to want to like get to know you or meet you. I already have my friends. And, you know, that's something where they don't do that. They're very accepting. They learn about different cultures and heritages and backgrounds. And they just, you know, they're
accepting.
More accepting and personally well-rounded. So I have to sometimes, Amanda sometimes has to take my phone away because sometimes in the comment section, I sometimes like to, you know, respond to the internet trolls and, you know, sometimes I have some things to say back to them when they, they want to make fun of me. I don't care. Say whatever you want to say about me. Like, there's nothing you can say that I haven't heard before. It's like, Eminem from 8 Mile. Like, I can take anything you have to say about me. I've already heard it. But you come at my kids, I've gotten better, but you come at my kids, we got a problem. And that's where I feel like, why you think the normal way is the right way. It might work for you, and that's great. I'm not here to tell somebody that like this is the way you should do it. No, you should do what is best for you and your family, and this just so happens to be what's best for us. Right. So I always say you don't owe anybody an explanation for doing what's best for your family. And that's a quote that I live by daily, where it's what works for me. It might not work for you, and I understand that, and I have no problem about that. But don't come and attack me because we're doing what's best for us. Right. So that's kind of our thoughts.
Yeah.
On that. And when it comes to sports too, where so this summer we kind of slowed down a little bit, and we spent pretty much the entire summer bouncing around central Pennsylvania, and like we did tumbling, gymnastic stuff. So there are plenty of ways, and there's, whether it's through a local YMCA, I-9 Sports, there's a lot of clubs and organizations around the country where you can, if you're going to be somewhere for 6 weeks at a time, you can easily sign up and do those things. So we have continued.
Or there are families that, they take a couple months break, slow down. And they're just kind of stationary in one area that they like, and they really explore that area. And then they put their kids in sports, baseball, football, soccer, just, give them the opportunity to meet other people in the area and play a sport and interact. And then they finish the season, and then they move on to wherever they want to travel next. So, right. There's always the option to do sports. Right. You can do sports and extracurricular activities living in an RV. Yeah.
And I mean, it honestly, it hasn't been one of our kind of highest priorities. Like, Amanda grew up playing softball, all year round down in Florida. I played football all the way into college. I played basketball, baseball. Sports was my life. I mean, it was what I was doing. When I wasn't doing sports, I was doing other sports. It was all I did. We give our girls that option if they want to do things. Like, we're okay with that. But we didn't want like that to become our lives and again, we have no problem if that's the choice that you make. If that's what you want to do, I'll support it. I don't care. We have nothing against that. We just decided that that's not what we wanted to do every single weekend. We didn't want to just be, at the soccer field from sun up to sundown on Saturday and Sunday. Like, we wanted to go and explore the country and do things. And listen, our girls are 9.5 and 5.5. The chances of, them going to play like a Division I sport and become like a professional athlete and make a living out of it are slim to none. They can start a sport at 7 and 12 and still excel at it and still do it. And we as somebody, being athletes and growing up with it, we understand there's a ton of life lessons that come from team sports and winning and losing and stuff like that. And we try to instill that in them through a hike. Like, a couple of weeks ago, we were in the Great Smokies, and we were hiking, what is it? Kawali, formerly Clingman's Dome. Yeah. And it was tough. We all wanted to quit. I mean, it is like a steep, straight uphill hike, and we wanted to quit. And that was our life lesson. Like, no, like, we have to fight through this. We have to work hard, because when we get to the end, the view at the top is going to be worth it. And it's the same thing as like when you win the Super Bowl, right? Like, I mean, I don't know what that's. I do one time. I won the Super Bowl. But, there's that reward at the end when you're hoisting up that trophy. To us, it's like the same thing. Like, when you get to the summit of that mountain you're hiking, or you get to that waterfall, when you wanted to quit halfway through, a lot of the times there might be some ice cream at the end of it that kind of, motivated them along. But there are a lot of the same life lessons, right? So there's a lot of the same things. There's a lot of, things that happen at the playground. You're playing a game of tag and no one wants to tag you, and you learn that, like, that upset feeling, and like those conversations are being had. They're just being had through a different platform and a different perspective. And, it's just, like I said, again, nothing wrong with it. If that's what you want to do, totally fine. Like, zero, again, like, we're not anti-sports or anything like we're not that. We are just, this is what's working for us, and this is what we're doing right now.
Right.
And that might change, and it might change,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I when I first started talking to people, I didn't really think about the homeschooling aspect. One, because that's not the norm, right? And I didn't even think about it. The kids are just there, and then it kept coming up in conversation. Then I started seeing it, social. They're listening to us. That these things, they're listening to us. But anyway, then I thought about, sports made me who I am, and like I don't know who I'd be without that aspect in my life. And I still don't know what I'd like if I were to ever do the full-time life. Like I'd have to let them do their thing. Like whether they want to go learn to surf, I go learn to surf, or let them go skiing, all those things. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it's working out. So I think there's ways to do it if you want to make it work. I mean, just like anything in life, you want to do it, there's a way to do it,
Right. Absolutely. They said, hey, we want to play soccer. Like I said, we spend 3-4 months down in Florida bouncing around. Like, we will adjust our travel plans and say, like, hey, you want to try soccer? Like, we'll play soccer for 3 months. And then, if you want to try something else, we can try something else. And, we're going to go travel for, 6 months or so and go see all these things. And we take their input too, from things that they learn in school, of like Amanda had told the story about Mount Rushmore. Like, our daughter, oldest one, really wanted to see it. We routed a little bit. It wasn't on our route, but we rerouted it. I obviously wanted to see it. Amanda wanted to see it, but our daughter, it was like at the top of her list. So we were like, we're going to make this work. So it's also about making sure you have those open conversations with your kids too, where, it's tough to take the conversation from the 5-year-old because her destination, I mean, she just wants to go to Australia to see Bluey, but sorry, you can't do that. So, having those open conversations is important to us, because we want to make sure, like, we're not forcing our children to do something. Like, this is, they love this. And we continually ask them, like, would you rather do this or would you rather do that, and get that input and feedback from them. And so that's kind of how it's been successful for us.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad it's all working out for you. It's always top of mind for me. That's like one of the big things, because kids, this is their lives too. So let's kind of shift from that. Let's go into kind of financial aspects, because this is a totally different lifestyle than it was before, same spot every day. So how did you learn to sustain this lifestyle financially? It sounds like, Chris, you did a little bit of, I guess, job hopping. So what does that look like? And are there any specific tips you can offer while earning an income on the road? And then what budgeting advice would you guys give? And who does the planning, I guess, the route planning as well? So
we'll start with the income side of things. So I started a digital marketing company back in 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. I did that for, almost 10 years. I was doing a lot of local marketing, and at that time was when Facebook marketing kind of first started. And a lot of my clients were realtors. And somebody once told me, if you want to become rich, don't be a realtor, sell services to a realtor. So that's what I was doing. I was doing Facebook marketing for realtors. And then when we moved to Pennsylvania, I was like, I kind of want to be a realtor. So I became a realtor in 2018. And then in 2020, kind of decided just personal mindset and goals anymore. And I went back to the business consultant, business marketing side of things. And then towards the end of 2022, kind of right around the beginning of 2023, we kind of sat down and said, this content creation thing, like, we're either going to do it or we're not going to do it. And we made that our number one priority, and became our kind of full-time income. And one piece of advice, I have a few. One would be, if you're going to become full-time RVers, do not expect social media as a full-time RVer to become your full-time income, because there is a lot of content creators. There is there's a lot of money to go around to be shared, but don't think that you're just going to start a YouTube channel and make, $10,000-$15,000 a month from a YouTube channel. It's going to take work. It takes a lot of work, different angles, different ways you might have to come at it and attack it. And another piece of advice, we get comments all the time and DMs from people that are like, oh, we want to do this, but like our jobs won't let us. I always say, how can you take your current job onto the road? So if somebody is a mechanic, or if somebody is good with tools, they know how to work with tools, go become like an RV tech, go to school to be an RV tech, or go to school to be an RV inspector. Do something, find something that your skill set aligns with, and then see how you can take that onto the road with you. So that's always my biggest piece of advice. Like if you're in sales, if you're in marketing, whatever you're doing, figure out if there's a way that you can take it online and take it remote. Even if I know people that are like, they're Uber drivers, or they do DoorDash wherever they are for that month or so. They that's just what they do for that month when they're in that area. So sometimes you have to be flexible, and it might not be the exact career that you're still in, but you might be able to shift and figure that out. From a budget, not sure that word's in our definite in our dictionary over here, but we do, our budget is more or less, is the money in the bank account to buy it, or is it not, but all joking aside, we do kind of have like we have our fixed expenses and stuff like that, but we could easily blow through that budget every single month when we're traveling, because when you're, when you're out at Zion National Park and you're hiking, and then you want to go to the local brewery and the pizza place and the ice cream shop, and, you're in Arizona and it's known for this food or that food, it's very easy.
Get expensive.
Yes, it can get very expensive.
At times you feel like you're on vacation, and some people, that is a misconception. People think we're on vacation all the time because we're going to different places and exploring different places. And that's not necessarily true. Like, we still have our downtime. We still have our day-to-day responsibilities. And maybe what you see online is we're always going here, going there, doing this, spending this money, but that's not the case all the time. And so, you're still going to have your expenses. Yeah. Just like you were living in a house and you wanted to go out to dinner on the weekend. Okay. Well, here, right. We might, maybe if we're in an area during the weekday we might go to a fancy restaurant, or not a fancy, but
like
a famous
or something
restaurant
like that, yeah,
during the weekday, as opposed to then the weekend. So budgeting wise, yeah, like we have to, pace yourself and realize that you're not on vacation all year round, and you still, it's go to the grocery store, get your groceries, fill your fridge, cook at home, and
we do allow ourselves kind of those vacation modes. So a couple of weeks ago, we were in Pigeon Forge. You can't go to Pigeon Forge and not just splurge on a million things, because you can't go 5 feet without the next tourist trap hitting you in the face. So that week was kind of spent, we did a lot of things. We did, we ate at a lot of the different places that people said you had to go to. And when we do travel the country, I'm looking for a good pizza or a good donut place or something like that. And we might do those things, but it's not like we're just constantly eating out, because it can get very expensive very quickly. But, we shop and have kind of the same grocery orders, and we do a lot of our shopping at Walmart, because she can just do it on the app. There's usually one around. We know what they have. We're not having to worry about weird local things,
sales we know there's going to be a Walmart within driving distance. I just order our weekly groceries on the app and go and pick it up.
Right. And that's kind of, and then one of the other things you mentioned there was kind of who does the planning and stuff. So when it comes to our routes, I will plan our route and figure out the campgrounds. Like we'll discuss where we want to go. Like we want to go to the Pacific Northwest next year. So we might throw a few things on, on the map where we want to go. And then I'll start filling in the blanks between, point A and point Z and start filling it in. Once we kind of have campgrounds set, places we're going to be, then Amanda will take over figuring out the day-to-day stuff. Like, okay, we're going to be in Bend, Oregon. We have 7 days there. She will come up with like 20 days worth of things in those 7 days. And then we'll figure out like what we're going to do based on that, and try to find like a lot of free activities too. Like for the kids, there's a lot of ways to find, free museum, like free entry to zoos and stuff.
Days, museums on certain days, local activities downtown, events, cool playgrounds in the area, just to get out of the campground and do something different, and hikes. Those are always free. And so we just, yes, definitely, it's not a vacation. You still have responsibilities, and some misconceptions are we're not rich because we do this lifestyle. That's definitely not the case. But at the same time, it's definitely not always cheaper than living in a house. That's some people think that, I'll just sell my house, get an RV, and I will save so much money. Well, that's not always the case.
You can definitely do it, but not traveling the way that we do. You're not going to.
Yeah, there's still some luxuries, right? It's not a vacation. I've heard that a time or two. Like this is way of life now. But you still have to have vacation, a little bit of vacation mode, because you're seeing a lot of cool things. This U.S. one, it's huge. The U.S. is massive, and our states are larger than most countries, right? So we have a lot of landmass to cover, and a lot of these states have a lot to offer. And you get to places, you got to check some stuff out. There's some really cool things. I've driven across the U.S. in mostly every direction. And you see a different biome every 3 hours, or different, there's mountains now, there's nothing but desert and tumbleweeds. And then there's this nice, desert with this rolling hill aspect and these weird forestries and, giant trees that are 300 foot tall. It changes a lot. So, you guys are seeing a lot of cool things. So, life is kind of a vacation in that aspect, but like money does exist, and you have to, make it happen properly. Because it does, it's a necessary evil, right? So, a lot of cool things along the way. So, obviously, you travel a ton, right? You go. How many states have you been in now?
Not as many as you would think. I think.
Right. I think we're in the upper 20s. Yeah. Okay. We're only like halfway there. Yeah. Because we spent our first kind of year-ish. We started in Pennsylvania, then we were like, all right, let's go down to Florida to see my family. So we spent a couple months there. Then we're like, all right, well, now it's time, the holiday time, we got to go back and see his family. So went back up there, spent our first winter in Pennsylvania, and never again. That was the worst mistake of my life. And we only lasted maybe a month or so. Yeah. And after I slipped down the icy steps, I was like, get me out of here into warmer weather. So we went back to Florida. So and then doctor appointments, back to Pennsylvania. So our first year and a half.
It took us almost 2 years to get west of Florida, the Panhandle. So we knew the East Coast. We knew the East Coast very well. But then, finally last year we went out west-ish. And so we kind of, then circled back around. And so we got a lot more states to cover. 2025, we have another kind of out west trip plans where we'll knock off a lot of those states. But like you said, it's each state has so much to offer and so many things to do that it's like, I could do this for 30 years and not even not even see everything. I mean, like, if you would have told me 4 years ago when I started thinking about this that Utah would be my favorite state, I would have told you that you were insane. Like, Utah has so many different landscapes. Like, we were in like in Zion, in like the most beautiful place in the world. Then we're in like Bryce, and we're looking at these weird hoodoo formations. Then you're in like the snowy mountain, and then like it's like how is this the same state, you know? And then it was so it's just like things like that. There's so much to see in each state where we try not to go too fast through a state, but also at the same time, like there's some states I just want to drive through because I've been there, I've checked it off the list, the stickers on the map, don't need to go back. But then there's the states where it's like I want to spend a lot more time. But so I'd say I think our tentative plan right now is probably knocking off another 10 or 11 states next year too, and really the Pacific Northwest is that's like one of my top spots. Like I want to see. I want to feel like I'm in the Goonies. Like that's like one of my bucket list items is I just want to be like in the Goonies, and I want to be out there and, you know, see everything that the Pacific Northwest has to offer. So that's our goal for next year.
Yeah.
We'll stop on through Boise because that's where we're at.
Yeah, well, so we were supposed to go that way this year, with plans changed, and that's part of this lifestyle too. Was like plans changed, and we decided to shift our plans and spend more time in Pennsylvania and really kind of slow down and just kind of regroup and really explore the central Pennsylvania area. But yeah, we'll definitely be in Boise. We have friends that we met along the road that they got off the road and they now live in Boise. So our girls want to, you know, stop there and see them and stuff like that too. So we will definitely be in the Boise area. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, y'all just let me know when you do so. But along these travels, I'm sure you've made your own little community or whatever. Like, you know, you've made some more friends, new friends, whatever it may be. But let's kind of dive into the community and connection as a whole, right? So have you guys really found a sense of community within the RV world? And if so, how? And then RV rallies, you guys go to those community events, to the 1,000 trails, like you find things to do for one, adults, and then two, for the kiddos as well. What does that all look like for you guys?
Yeah. We've found the community is awesome. Like everybody is just friendly, welcoming, ready to, you know, lend a hand if something's wrong. Because we all kind of share like the same mindset.
Weirdness.
Yeah, I guess, right. Like we're all the weirdos that are doing this.
Right.
So yeah, we're all kind of like on the same playing field, and yeah, everybody's just been nice, and you kind of along the way you meet so many people that just from all different walks of life, from different parts of the country, and it's so interesting to hear their life story and their reason why they started this lifestyle. And our kids, you know, our kids have made best friends and clicked well with other kids, and it's just been a great overall experience. You know, you then of course you come across ones that maybe you don't mesh well with, and that's perfectly fine. And but yeah, overall it's been great. Like it's
right. I think that community feeling of knowing that, like, if you're getting ready to pull out of the campground and like there's something wrong, you're going to have 4 or 5 people coming over, you know, to help you, whether you want them to or not. Sometimes they're overly nice and like, all right, I got this, buddy, you know. But you know, it's nice to know that people know what you're going through, you know, and right. we share, like Amanda said, we share a commonality of we made a decision to live life a little bit different than the masses, and we all kind of stick together where, you know, we may not see eye to eye on, you know, on a lot of things. You know, if you got a Cowboy star, you know, on your truck, I have a tough time, you know, becoming friends with you as a diehard Eagles fan. I'm sure we can find some commonality. Maybe
get
not much,
over it.
But you know, there's these little things that we share this core commonality that holds us all together. But you know, I can have a conversation with people about, a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, we share this commonality where it doesn't matter what, your politics stance is, your religious stance, your sports teams, your, what state you come from, where you're all kind of living this life to provide what you think is the best value and best life for your family. And I'll stand behind you, like if you need help, like something's wrong with your RV, I might not know what's wrong. I may not be able to know.
Probably not going to be able to help.
I'm not going to be able to help. Like I'll be able to hold something, I can hold your screwdriver.
Record.
Yes.
You can record.
Professional flashlight holder.
Exactly. I can help with something. And, it's nice to know, because we live, we lived in an HOA before this, and I talked to literally our next door neighbors. I talked to them, I think like twice, 2 or 3 times. One was in a blizzard and I was shoveling snow, and I think I was willing to talk to anybody at that time, but like I never talked to them. I didn't even know their names, except for, I got their mail by accident a few times, but I didn't know anything about them. Where the sense of community, even if they're not full-time RVers, like I talk to so many people that are just weekend campers, and I like hearing stories. Like we're in a different state where maybe they live in, and they tell me, the local, oh, you like pizza, you got to go to this place, or oh, you like, draft beer, go to this brewery, and things like that. So it's the camping community.
Right. You start with like that common.
Right.
Yeah. And it can be, you think you're alone, like going on the road, going away from your house, your, typical life, you feel like you're going to be alone, but you're not alone. Mm-hmm. We've never felt alone.
No.
Even though we've left behind some family and friends.
Right.
But we've met so many other people, and we just, you're never alone. You don't feel alone.
Right. You can be as social as you want, and you can be as much to yourself as you want. And there's a place for you, however you want to do it. If you want to be at a mom's night or dad's night out, or you want to just hang inside your RV and not sit by a campfire, like we've done it all. There's times where we want to go, hang out at the campfire with 10 other families. And there's other nights where I'm like, listen, I just don't got it in me tonight. I want to sit here. I want to sit on my recliner. I want to watch some dumb show, or, my 11th night of football in a row. And like, so it's like, that's just what I want to do. Exactly. Yeah. So, and
I was going to say, sometimes we've mixed it up where we've gone to rallies and we've gone to, RV events for the kids and stuff like that. So, and that's a fun way to meet other families, mm-hmm. and meet the kids, meet other kids, and do different activities together, and just, socialize and mingle and just make memories.
Right.
In the end.
And we do use Thousand Trails. We personally could not do this without our Thousand Trails membership. I mean, like it's saved us tens of thousands of dollars. But it is always nice when we are traveling quickly and we're staying at a lot of like kind of private campgrounds and stuff. Then when we go to a Thousand Trails, there's typically a lot of other full-time families. So the kids kind of know that there's other full-time kids there too. And especially, like I said, in the winter time is when we really slow down. They see kids they haven't seen all year long, and they just pick right back up where they were, when they saw them a few months ago, maybe. So we definitely love the kind of family aspect that Thousand Trails brings to the table for us, not just from a cost saving perspective, but also just that family kind of environment of knowing that there's other families there. Like if we go to a private campground, we don't know there's going to be other kids there. We might be the only family there, or whatever. So it's always nice to have that community, knowing that on Thousand Trails around the country, you're going to have other families there that are kind of like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was wondering about that. I mean, just in general, because, having the kids there is one thing, but like, it sounds, from what I've been hearing, it sounds like it's pretty, there's quite a few people doing this now, because, for sure from the housing market, it's not exactly the best. I mean, it's not real I mean, real estate in the past or in history historically shows that it's created the most millionaires. I get that. Totally understand that. But you're kind of locking yourself in different ways, especially if you're not planning on to renting it out. But right now, I can't even get something. I can't even buy something to rent it out to make what I'd be losing money. It wouldn't make any sense. But it seems like this is it seems like everyone finds their own sense of community. And then you brought up the social battery. It happens to me all the time. I'll be in the mid conversation with somebody, and then my social battery just goes, no more, done. I have to walk away. Like, I'm a very social person. I'm very social. I have no problem walking up to a stranger and talking to them. But when it's off, it's off. So watching the show and just turning off everything, right there with you, pal. Yeah. Oh man. But since you guys started this 3.5 years ago, let's kind of talk about what you would tell a beginner. So if you're looking back at yourself 3.5 years ago when you first started this idea, what are 3 things that you would tell yourself about this? You already talked about misconceptions, so we don't need to touch on that part really anymore. But what would 3 things you would say, hey, this is what you need to know before you start this RV journey?
One, I would say be flexible. Learn to be flexible. I was always, like I said, routine, rigid. I needed a plan. I had things done a certain way. And then I got on the road and I was like, who am I? And I just so flexible. I don't need an itinerary. I don't need a schedule anymore. Because things will be thrown at you that you're not expecting. Weather, for instance, you plan on going to an area and there's a major hurricane or something, weather-wise coming your way. Well, you're going to have to be flexible and shift your route, shift your plans. And you just have to be okay with that. Or maybe you're at a location and you're like, I'm not feeling so comfortable here. I don't like this area. I don't feel safe. You have to be flexible. You have to go take your home, tow it somewhere else where you do feel safe. Things break or, things happen on the road and you have to learn to be flexible. Right. Flexible. You got to be flexible. Right. That's definitely.
I would say majority of things fall under that category of just being flexible. Know that you can have a plan, but plans will change. And I would also say don't overthink it. We talked earlier about rush, but don't rush it. But don't overthink everything. Don't wait for that perfect moment, because Amanda said earlier, that perfect moment is never going to. And you just have to do it, and just don't overthink it. Just do it. Have your plan. Don't overanalyze everything, but get started. Figure it out as you go, and if it doesn't work, who cares? You at least you tried it. I had people tell me oh, you'll be done in 3 months. You'll be done in 6 months. Where it's okay, and who cares? What if I am? If after 6 months I'm like, you know what? Everything I thought I could do in this full-time RV life, I can't do. So be it. At least, when I'm 70, 80 and I'm laying there, I'm not going to think, man, I really, what would happen if you
actually did?
We were kind of talking a little beforehand. I always joke about what happens if I didn't blow out my knee in high school? I could have been playing in the NFL. Who knows? I can't. I'm not going to dwell on that my whole life. Right. With all the different what ifs, and just know that if you get out there, you start doing it, you'll know what works for you. And kind of leading into that is don't think you have to full-time RV like everybody else, right? We are not boondockers. We have boondocked 3 or 4 nights in 3.5 years. It's not for us. When I first brought this up to her, she was like, we're going to be in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, and there's not going to be a store, or there's not going to be a hospital. There's not going to be anything anywhere around for hours. And that's not the case. We're in campgrounds with full hookups. We're taking full blown hot showers. We're taking, flushing our toilets as many times as we want. We're doing laundry. We're doing dishes. We're doing everything the same. It's just we're doing it in a mobile home. And, you don't have to, just because you see what other people are doing on social media, that's not how you have to live your full-time life. You do what works for you and what you're comfortable with, and it will make it so much more enjoyable. It'll last longer, because you're not going to feel like you hate it because like you're trying to live somebody else's life through their social media stuff. Like, you're doing it your way and make it work for you.
Yeah.
The be flexible thing makes a lot of sense. I mean, just in general, I feel I'm sure you guys have both changed a little bit mentality and like who you are as people from that. I could almost hear it in your voice, Amanda. You're like, you said you used to be pretty rigid with the routine, and that's kind of I think that's more of a like. I mean, it sounds like Chris and you and I are more like. I mean, you should see my desk. It's bad. It just is what it is. Like I like it's organized chaos to me. It's not organization. It's one of my weaknesses.
I know where everything is. It may look like a mess, but I know where it's at. And if I don't
touch it, don't touch it. But I mean, do you feel like
that's kind of that, stuff like that has stayed the same.
You brought that from a house to an RV.
I still have that junk drawer. I got 3 of them now. I used to have 1. Now I got 3 different ones. But I'm going to clean it out one day. I'm gonna see what's in that drawer one day, and then in that bucket, and I'll get to it eventually. So things like that are not, they're not going to change. Like I think we've definitely we've become closer as a family. You're kind of forced to, but I don't think I think a lot of times I hear people, we get comments all the time like, I could never live in a tight space with my wife like that. My response usually is like, well, then how do you live in a big space with them then? I love my wife. We can live in a tiny space together. We can live in a big space together. Like, if I need my time away, I have an entire campground. I have a whole national park. I can go for a walk, and I can get in my truck and I can go do what I need to do and come back, and everything's good. And, so it's like living tiny like this may kind of make problems that you already have bigger. It may not always fix things. It may make it bigger because you're in a smaller space. But we've learned to kind of deal with differences a lot different. Our communication is a lot better, where before we can get into an argument. I mean, arguments are going to happen. I could go into a separate room in the house and just be by myself. And now we're forced to, be adults and have conversations and parent differently and just become completely not different people, but we've become better people because of this. And we've learned to deal with situations just in life differently. And it's just been, I think, better overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. It's, as Brent make a good point. If you can't get along with her in a big space, why are you guys together or whatever? But this being the enclosed space, you're traveling together, you can't really, it's harder to get away. So it's the problem or the issue is it's there. What are we going to do about it? So it forces you to be more comfortable with each other. And it forces, I've heard basically everyone that I've talked to, it sounds, from what I can remember, everyone said it has made our family much closer. But you're with each other.
Yeah.
What, 95% of the time, 97% of the time?
Right. Yeah.
So, that's the kind of an unexpected benefit, which I'm kind of leading into with the RV space. What are your favorite experiences? And it sounds like you gave me a little bit of an unexpected benefit, but what are some of the best places that you've been, best things that you've done, whether it be with your family or by yourselves? What are maybe some other unexpected benefits from living the RV life? Yeah.
Wow. So many memorable experiences. Right. When we first started, our first national park was Acadia National Park in Maine. And my daughter, 3.5 years later, still talks about it. And she wants to be now a park ranger in Acadia National Park. And we've been to 15 other national parks, and we're like, well, what about this one? She's like, no, Acadia National Park, because it has the mountains and the woods, and it also has the ocean and the sea life. And so it's if we weren't if we were in a house, if we didn't experience that, then she maybe never would want to be a park ranger. Like, so this whole experience kind of is shaping, like you said, like shaping their lives and their childhood and who they may eventually grow up to be. So that's really cool. That I just love that that national park had such an impact on her.
Right.
So many years later, that's what she wants to do as her career.
Right. And that kind of was very important to us because it was our first national park, and that was kind of our like, wow, this is what we do this for. Like, this is why we're doing this. And then it kind of like, I mentioned earlier, like Utah is probably our combined, like our favorite state, Zion probably being the number one place we've ever been to. And it's, it was just eye opening. Like, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up, maybe 45 minutes from the Poconos, and I took it for granted. Now, I guess, people like come to vacation to go to the Poconos and see it. And I grew up there and was like, I don't know, whatever. It's a mountain with some snow on it where people go skiing and snowboarding. Who cares? And Amanda grew up 15 minutes from the beach in South Florida in Palm Beach County. So it's like people literally go to retire there and they live there and they vacation there, and we take things for granted. Yeah. Whereas now, like, we go and we see these places and it's like, we don't take it for granted anymore. It's like, I look at a stream going through a mountain and like, I'm mesmerized. I just want to sit there and just like stare at a stream going through a mountain. And it's like, I sometimes get emotional and like choked up, and I don't even know why I am, but it's just like the beauty of seeing it and being like, wow, I'm here, and I'm not just in my small town in Pennsylvania. Like, I'm here, I'm seeing this right now is just like incredible. So I think just those experiences of seeing so many different places and seeing like people from all walks of life, seeing how people, live in such a small community, and how tourism and like our traveling dollars are what are keeping a small little town like in business, and like, and how just a bigger, deeper appreciation for just how the world works, I think is something that, like I said, living in a small town, like, I didn't really care. Like, I was like, whatever. The person in Colorado, oh, well, sorry, you had an avalanche, too bad. I just didn't understand the impact of everything that was like happening and going on until, but you have, because you see these places, these people become like, you see them in real life. So like, you see people from, like, I didn't know, I lived under a rock, like, I didn't know what the world was like. I didn't know, there were real people with real feelings across the country. It was just something that's like, you just live in that small town, that small community. That's all you know. Where now it's like, you have such a deeper impact. Like, you go to places and then like you see on the news something happens and you're like, oh, we went there like 6 months ago. And now like, the rock, something in Zion happened at one of like the hikes we did. And then it was like, the hike was closed for like 6 months. And it's like, oh no, like we were there. Like, thankful we got to experience that before it's now like changed forever. So just a much greater appreciation for everything across the country. Yeah. And our kids still have, like, they just love, seeing all the different landscapes, and especially the animals. The animals across the country are just wild. Like, we're learning new things every day, every place we go. And they just love seeing the bighorn sheep and the pronghorns. And it's like, I didn't even know what a pronghorn was. Right. And they just, one of the fastest animals in the world. Right. We've never saw a moose. And that was like on our, like, seeing moose in the Rockies, the Rockies, like in a lake, just like sitting there. And I'm like, all right, now this is like staged. Like, this is fake. There's no way this is literally, I said this is like a Coors Light commercial right now. Like, it was just, everything was just like picture perfect in the Rockies. And, seeing those things, it just gives you much more perspective on life and appreciation on it, for sure. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And they have, there's this, like you were saying, you grew up in a small town, right? I mean, your world keeps getting bigger. And I've said this before. It's like
I grew up in X small town. Well, then with age, I started to know the county. And then after that, I knew that side of the state. And then like, maybe I knew the state more as an older kid or whatever, a college kid. But it just baffles me that people may not ever leave their hometown or county. And like for me as a kid, I had the same upbringing, I guess, but I also had my dad was a pilot. Like he was in all 50 states, but I think probably before I was born. And he flew to Canada and Mexico and all the beaches basically. Yeah. And so for me, I was like, oh man, my wander, I had a wanderlust soul as a child. And like going out and seeing these things. And when you're bringing these things up, that's why I'm going over here. I'm not ignoring you. I'm looking up Acadia. I'm looking at Poconos. I've never seen this stuff. I've heard Acadia. Like basically everyone that I've talked to has said Acadia. So I finally looked it up and holy sheesh. It looks good. Looks like a great place to be. But the fact that people don't have that, and then you don't have that desire, but now you didn't have that desire, Chris, and now you did, or now you do, and then you have that, I guess, that appreciation of it all. You said you get choked up by the river. Yeah, because that river's been flowing long before we were ever here, and it's going to be flowing long before we're gone, long after we're gone. I mean, there's something more powerful. I mean, you just become more connected to everything around, probably seeing everything. Yeah. Yeah,
definitely. Definitely. And for the record, you did cry when we saw Horseshoe Bend.
I did. So I started crying when I saw Horseshoe Bend. I don't know why, but I saw it in a book one day when I was in like middle school or something. And I said, I'm going to go there one day. And that was like my number one bucket list item, was seeing Horseshoe Bend. So when we finally got there after like 2.5 years of like RVing, I saw it and I just broke down, because it was like this is literally why I'm doing this, because I wanted to I fought through all the struggles, I wanted to like give up so many times, and it's just like you just keep fighting through. And it was something that I just said, one day I'm going to see this, and I did.
That
and
day
it was like
finally came.
It came true, and I did it, and I accomplished it. And now the bucket list is, I don't even call it a bucket list anymore. It's just the places I'm going to go to. And but that was like my number one. That when I told her, I said, when we get, like, if we do this and we get an RV, we're going to Horseshoe Bend. Like, I have to see this. And again, I don't even know where I saw it. I think it was like in a book or something. And I don't know why it was my number one place. Like, I've talked to some people and they're like, cool, it's a bend in the river. There's like 50 of them across, around the country. But it was like, it's just something there that it would just, it was just very emotional for me. And it kind of felt like a sense of accomplishment and realizing like, this is what I'm doing. This is why, like, I'm doing this is where I'm providing this life for our family and whatnot. So
this amazing country, and we're providing this life for our children. And some people might not agree that that's what we should be doing, but we feel like we're doing our best. Right. And that's how
Right.
It's almost like you accomplished a purpose, or you found your purpose, and I know what you're feeling. I felt that, like, when I left, I said a long time ago, I'm like, I have to leave the Midwest. I have to. Like, it was a goal of mine. It was a huge goal. I was like, I have to leave. And then, like, all the stars aligned. I started working for a job that I had no idea was headquartered in Boise. And Boise was on my list 6 years prior to me even searching, I just stumbled upon this job selling RVs in Lincoln, Nebraska. It turns out marketing and headquarters is in Meridian, which I had no idea what Meridian was. I was like, oh, whatever, it's Idaho. And then they're like, oh, it's Boise. You're like, well, why didn't you say that? I'm like, what do I need to do to get out of here?
That's where, like, some of our closest friends, they stopped RVing and they now live in Meridian. So that's where we plan on going there.
Yeah.
Well, good. Yeah. And I left Lincoln at 4:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, broke down in tears, just bawled my eyes out for like 30-40 minutes. I was all alone in my car. Oh man. But it was an accomplishment. You're doing something that you really want to do.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to skip a question here. because we're kind of on the we're on the subject of it all, and it sounds like you kind of just answered it there, but like that sounds like what your why is. Why you're doing this? Why do you keep doing this? Why do you want to continue to do this? Is there anything else you want to like kind of add on to that? Why you do this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had always wanted to travel when we retired. That was something like I had said, like when I retire, I want to buy a drivable RV and I just want to travel the country. And when 2020 happened, I was like, you know what? I might not make it to retirement age. Or when I do make it to the retirement age, I might not be able to walk to go on these hikes. Or I might not be able to do anything. And my kids are going to be all grown. And then I'm going to be worried, grandkids and this and that. So I was just like, let's just do it. Let's do it now. Let's travel. Let's experience it for ourselves. Let's experience it with our kids. Let's experience it through our kids' eyes at the age that they're at, and not worry about, oh, are they going to remember this? Half the time, I don't care if they remember that exact moment. We're able to enjoy their experience and their expressions at that time. And that's what matters. And, that was kind of our why, is like, we want to do this as a family, and we want to experience these things. We want to travel. We want to show our kids this country. Like I said, I grew up in a small town. You drive down the street, you're waving to the first time Amanda came to visit, I was driving around the town with her. She was like, "Who are you waving to?" And I'm like, "Oh, this
everybody,
person, that person."
Everybody. What's up? Yep.
So you're at the grocery
and she
store.
was like,
"How do you know? I don't know a single person when I go to the grocery store."
Right. So it was like, I just wanted to experience something different. I wanted my kids to experience something different and just be able to provide them with something where they can have these different experiences in life and see a lot of different things. Maybe they want to live somewhere else. Maybe they don't want to live in the town that I raised them in. Maybe, I want them to have an opportunity to know that there's more in life than just this small town. And that's what they choose. Perfectly fine. But our why was just getting out there, experiencing things, showing the country, just showing different places that we've learned about, read about, have seen. And, like we talked about earlier, like for me, it really hit me in 2 points. First, when we went to Acadia National Park, and that was like our first official national park. And it was like, wow, this place is amazing. This place is beautiful. And then 2, when we went to Horseshoe Bend, and I just, like I said, got emotional. It was like, it's all worth it. All the hateful comments that we get, all the, backlash and relationships that have been lost because of this and whatever. It's like, it's all worth it at the end of the day for us, because of seeing the faces of our kids, seeing the excitement, the feeling that we get. And, sometimes
we're doing what makes us happy, our kids happy, us happy as a family, and we're living our lives. We're not living for somebody else. We're living our lives. And also a big thing is tomorrow's not guaranteed. Anything can happen at any time, especially with 2 family members, having a disease. And it's just like, just live in the moment, just live for right now and do what makes us happy right now.
Right. And something we hear a lot, like we go back to the community, we talk to a lot of, elderly people and older couples, and we hear all the time, I wish I would have did that with my kids. And I've never once heard, somebody a lot older than me say, I wish I didn't travel with my kids. Like, I've never once had somebody say to me, like, man, that's great. That is horrible why you do that. People my own age say that to me all the time, but people that have, they're on that last kind of leg. Yeah. The elderly people, they're all always say the same thing to us. Wow, that's awesome. I wish I would have did that. I wish I could have, made those memories with my kids. And,
you're providing your children with a great
so it makes us feel like, what, maybe we are on.
It reassures us that we are doing the right thing. I mean, we think we are doing the right thing for our children. But it's just kind of nice to hear that others think that as well. Like, okay, yes, we are doing the right thing. Our instincts are right. So, yeah.
And I'm happy for you guys because it seems everybody that I talk to, it seems like they're on the right path, whoever for whatever they're chasing. And I'm happy that you guys are doing so because it seems flourishing. It sounds flourishing from this side of the screen, you know. So I love hearing about it. That's why I love talking to you guys. I have a couple questions about your actual RV now, and we're going to go into that. So, like, what are your favorite gadgets and gizmos that you found along the way? I know that it doesn't sound like you're the most handy guy, Chris, but there's got to be a couple things that you've done or that make things easier for you. And Amanda, the same for you. What are those things that like make life easier in the RV life?
Right. I definitely like my washer and dryer, like I said. Gadgets. I mean,
she's an ice diva. So we have since we have a residential fridge, she needed the ice maker. So we do have the ice maker, and she loves that. She is an ice diva, and I prefer iced coffee, so I like the ice being in there too. So we do like, because we use so much water, like we have a full-blown like water filter system and water softener system that we use because we like to just be able to just drink water where we are instead of having to continuously buy water and refill it and stuff like that. So I would say that's kind of like a tech type of thing that has definitely made our life easier. Also for me too, I know a lot of people debate and go back and forth on this, but I absolutely love my my trucker GPS system that I have. And I don't rely on like Google Maps or Apple Maps or anything like that. I'd like knowing that if a tractor trailer can drive on that road, I can drive on that road. It can be a little expensive, but what I paid for it and using it for 4 years now, like it's so worth it for me, just having that little less anxiety when you're driving of knowing like, okay, if it says a tractor trailer can go on this road, I can go on it. I'm good. I don't have to worry about trying to make a tight turn or like backing down a road or something like that. So I would say that that's something that has definitely kind of helped. And then, yeah, I mean, some small things like just using like travel size like monitors for my computer, like just little things that like I would have never thought about that are just now like very helpful for us, like things that have like multiple purposes too. So, buying something that can be used in 3 different locations in the RV instead of having to buy 3 separate products because we don't have anywhere to put it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things, and like the more you dive into it, the more you're going to find. I mean, there's people that have link trees up the wazoo, right? Like, I mean, you click into like, I can't even look at all this. There's too much stuff.
Like, don't think you have to go buy every single thing. Like before we picked up our RV, our downstairs bathroom was literally filled like with just boxes and stuff. Now, luckily, like I've used majority of those things, but like I've heard people talk about like 20 things that they've bought that they've never even used. Like, have your necessities, but then just, some things maybe like, let's just wait. Like, let's find out if you need the 17 different hoses, like you might be good with just 2. So just know what you need before, I don't travel with an entire like 500 set of tools. Like I have what I need to, I got a phone to call somebody else to ask to borrow their tool if I need to.
You need.
Right. So like you might not need everything. So don't try and, bring your entire house with you because you might not need it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things out there, and there's always someone making something new, right? And then there's always someone talking about something that they just got given to, like, hey, if you talk about this, we'll pay you for it,
Right.
You got to be careful out there. Anybody listening?
Cool, absolutely. But might not be practical.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So lastly, guys, before we kind of wrap it up here, what's your future plans? How do you see this like evolving in the next few years? Where do you plan on going? Like, what are some bucket list checkoffs? You said you don't really have a bucket list no more. It's just, I'm going, which is a great way of living life. But how do you see that? What's the goals with the RV journey? What does that all look like for you?
So definitely, I think like the Pacific
we want to see. We still have half of the country still left to see. So definitely not stopping before then. Yeah, and it just right now it has been working the past 3.5 years in our season of life. It's working right now, and hopefully it will continue to work. We have no end in sight. I mean, we still love and enjoy doing what we're doing. And
when it doesn't make sense, when it doesn't make sense, it'll make sense. So like for us, it's like we'll know when the time comes, and until then, like we're not going to say, okay, we're giving ourselves 2 more years to do this. Where Amanda can attest to this. I don't like having like a deadline for something. I don't do well when somebody tells me when I have to do something. So I kind of like just, who knows, we'll keep doing it until we're not doing it anymore. And, that could be 6 months from now. It could be 6 years from now. It could be, who knows, so it's not, we may hit all 50 states and still keep going, or we won't make it to 50 states. For us, we literally don't even know where we're going in a week and a half. So let alone, 9 months, 2.5 years from now. Flexibility. So.
Was there resentment in that?
She does like to know where we're going to be. She doesn't need to know what we're going to be doing, but the good part is there will always be a place to go. So I always tell her, like, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. That's my famous last words. I'll figure it out.
Well, I love that. Flexibility. That was good. Oh, it cracks me up. Well, guys.
Yeah. No end in sight. We still have a lot more. Definitely out west. We want to see out west. We want to see those big cacti in Arizona. We want to see
trees in California and cornfields in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Tell you what, it's prettier than you think. I mean, I moved out here to Idaho, and Idaho's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. One thing they do not have is beautiful sunsets like Nebraska or the Midwest. We have a lot more moisture in the sky, so we have thunderhead clouds all the time, thunderstorms rolling in. The sunset out here are compared to home. Like there's barely any clouds in general. Like we don't get any clippers coming across the pond. We get like no rainstorm. It'll be sprinkling outside. And they're like, man, it's really coming down. I'm like, guys, we can't see 40 yards back home sometimes. On average, Idaho gets around 11 inches of rain a year. I'm like, that's a month, if not 2 weeks back home. Like we've got inches in an hour, Oh, big.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you get a chance to stop in Nebraska, stop at Lake McConaughey, stay for a while. That's on the far side of Nebraska. The eastern side, if you need any suggestions, give me a holler. I promote Nebraska very much just because I'm from there. People will talk crap on it. Look, it's a flat state. It's really not flat. It's actually abnormally hilly if you get in the right spots. But anyway, is there anything else you guys would like to share before we hop off here?
I don't think so.
No,
I think we covered almost everything.
Covered it all, yeah.
I try to do that. Try to make sure you guys have enough room to talk about everything, everything that involves your RV life, because we want to know it. We want to know it. We want everybody out there listening, hopefully listening. I don't get a whole lot of listeners, but I got some. We're building. We're slowly getting there. But really, guys, I really appreciate you guys taking your time to talk to me. I know you guys have other things to do, other places to see, other bucket lists to add, and all that, and kiddos too. I didn't see the kiddos. Tell them hello for me.
Yes,
they're
probably.
But if there's nothing else, what was that?
No, I was going to say, they're probably just occupied. Who knows? Who knows what we're going to walk out to find?
Oh, awesome. Well, everybody listening, give these guys a follow. They're going to start doing video logs, right? Like a full daily life. I want to do the same thing. They want to send me on the road. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to go live all the time and just show people what I do, how I make this all happen. And there, you guys are dropping here shortly. This will probably drop during December-ish time, if not January. I'm quite backed up, which is a good thing because I have a surgery here. Yeah, I have a surgery here in December just for my nose, but I just don't want to talk to people for like a week or two. Let that all heal up. But dropping a new YouTube in December, so give them a follow. Their IG is how I found them. Their Instagram is. So give them follows there as well. And if you guys would like to follow me, please do so. I talk to influencers. I talk to manufacturers. I talk to camping manufacturers. Talk to camping gear. Talk to Class B van creators and stuff like that. We're doing all sorts of things here at Bishop's RV. But lastly, BishFix discount right there. 60% off, $199 a year. Other than that, guys, Chris and Amanda, thank you so much for joining. And
thank you
for having us.
Thank you. It was fun.
Absolutely, as you. And everybody listening, please stay tuned for more from the RV Voice.